I am Cathryn Miller, 32 years old, and until recently the top sales executive at Pinnacle Solutions. After 5 years of 60-hour weeks and breaking every sales record, I was promised a $72,000 performance bonus. Then I walked into what I thought was my celebration, only to see Amanda, our new intern, holding my bonus check. Our CEO called it a motivational incentive for fresh talent. As my world crumbled, I somehow kept smiling. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If you have ever had something you earned taken away, hit that like button and subscribe to see how I turned this betrayal into my greatest professional triumph. My journey with Pinnacle Solutions began 5 years ago when I joined as a junior sales representative fresh out of my MBA program. At that time, the company was expanding rapidly in the technology solutions sector, specializing in enterprise software for major corporations. I was 27, ambitious, and eager to prove myself in an industry dominated by men twice my age. From day one, I put everything into my work. While other new hires maintained strict 9-to-5 schedules, I arrived early and stayed late. During my first year, I exceeded my sales quota by 20% when most rookies struggled to hit 75%. By year 2, I had doubled my targets and begun building a reputation as someone who could close impossible deals. My personal life took a back seat to my career ambitions. I lived alone in a modest apartment, still paying off student loans that had financed my education. My father had passed away during my sophomore year of college, leaving my mother with substantial medical bills from his long illness. Though I sent money home each month to help her, I dreamed of the day I could eliminate her debt completely. Pinnacle had a crystal-clear bonus structure based on performance metrics. Sales representatives who exceeded their annual targets by 50% or more qualified for the executive performance bonus, a substantial reward that equaled roughly 40% of our base salary. In my 5 years, only 2 other employees had ever achieved this distinction, both much more senior than me. The company culture at Pinnacle Solutions could be described as intensely competitive. Richard Patterson, our 56-year-old CEO, fostered an environment where only results mattered. He often quoted phrases like, "There are no points for trying in business, and winners take all." Richard had built the company from nothing 20 years ago and maintained absolute control over every major decision. My direct supervisor, Stephanie Morris, had hired me personally and served as something of a mentor during my early months. As director of sales, she recognized my potential and offered guidance that helped accelerate my career. When I began outperforming my peers, she proudly introduced me to important clients as her star protégé. Stephanie had been with Pinnacle for 15 years and was one of the few women in senior leadership. Then there was Amanda Bailey, the 22-year-old intern who had joined the company just 3 months ago. Fresh-faced and eager, she was the daughter of one of Richard's college friends. While friendly enough, she had limited experience and often required extensive guidance on basic tasks. Despite this, she seemed to enjoy special treatment, frequently being invited to meetings that far exceeded her position level. My closest ally at Pinnacle was Marcus Wells, another sales executive who had joined around the same time as me. Though we technically competed for the same clients, we developed a friendship based on mutual respect. Marcus was one of the few people who recognized and acknowledged how hard I worked for my achievements. Jennifer Clark served as our Human Resources Director, a position that seemed to consist mainly of implementing Richard's decisions rather than advocating for employees. She maintained professional cordiality, but rarely intervened in conflicts. Looking back, I can identify the warning signs I should have noticed. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. The gradual exclusion from strategic emails. The way Richard began introducing Amanda to my largest clients, calling it professional development. At the time, I dismissed these signals, believing my performance would speak for itself. The sacrifices I made for Pinnacle were substantial. I missed my cousin's wedding to close a major deal. I worked through pneumonia to finish quarterly projections. I canceled a long-planned visit to my mother when an important client requested a last-minute meeting. My dedication was absolute and unwavering. The $72,000 bonus represented more than just money to me. It would completely eliminate my remaining student loans and provide enough to settle a significant portion of my mother's medical debt. After years of financial stress, I had finally reached a turning point that would change both our lives, or so I thought. The morning of what I expected to be my celebration began with unusual optimism. I carefully selected my outfit, a charcoal gray suit that projected both professionalism and confidence. I had prepared a short acceptance speech expressing gratitude to the team that supported me and reinforcing my commitment to Pinnacle Solutions. As I drove to the office, I mentally rehearsed how I would announce to my mother that her financial burdens were finally over. The thought brought tears to my eyes that I quickly blinked away. Emotional displays had no place in the corporate environment I had learned to navigate so carefully. The quarterly meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in our main conference room. I arrived 15 minutes early, as was my habit, only to find several executives already present and speaking in hushed tones. They fell silent when I entered, offering tight smiles that should have been my second warning. The room gradually filled with staff from various departments. I noticed several people glancing at me with expressions I could not quite interpret. Marcus arrived last, giving me a questioning look that suggested he sensed something amiss as well. Richard entered precisely at 10, followed by Stephanie and Jennifer from HR. His booming voice called the meeting to order as he took his position at the head of the table. Unusually, Amanda was invited to sit near him rather than with the other junior staff at the back of the room. My heart rate accelerated as Richard began discussing the extraordinary sales performance of the past quarter. This is it, I thought, my moment of recognition after years of sacrifice. He displayed our sales charts with my numbers towering above all others. Richard said, "This quarter has shown us extraordinary results, with our team exceeding targets by an unprecedented 63%. This kind of performance deserves special recognition." He then gestured toward the side table where a large ceremonial check lay face down. My palms began to sweat as he approached it. "Today we are excited to award our executive performance bonus of $72,000. The room burst into applause as Richard lifted the check. I half rose from my seat, ready to accept the recognition I had earned. Then the world seemed to stop as I glimpsed the name written in bold script across the check. Amanda Bailey. Not Cathryn Miller. My body froze mid-motion as Richard continued speaking, his words reaching me as if through water. "While Cathryn has shown impressive numbers, we believe in investing in the future of our company. Amanda represents the fresh perspective and enthusiasm that will drive Pinnacle Solutions forward. This incentive bonus will motivate her to achieve the excellence we value." The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees as I slowly sank back into my chair. Blood rushed to my face, creating a roaring sound in my ears that nearly drowned out Amanda's surprised squeal of delight as she bounced forward to accept the check. I forced my expression to remain neutral, even as my stomach twisted violently. Across the table, Stephanie stared fixedly at her notepad, refusing to meet my gaze. Jennifer maintained her professional smile, revealing nothing. Only Marcus showed any reaction, his jaw clenching visibly as he witnessed the theft of my earned reward. Amanda clutched the check to her chest, her voice high with excitement. "Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. I promise to work super hard and make everyone proud." She seemed genuinely unaware that the bonus should have been mine, believing this was simply an unexpected gift rather than a calculated redistribution of my earned compensation. Richard clapped her on the shoulder paternally. "We expect great things from you, Amanda. This is just the beginning of your journey with us." Throughout this surreal scene, I sat perfectly still, controlling my breathing through sheer force of will. Years of navigating corporate politics had taught me that visible emotion would only be used against me later. Inside, however, a hurricane of rage and betrayal threatened to shatter my carefully constructed professional facade. When several colleagues turned to gauge my reaction, I surprised even myself by offering a composed smile. "Congratulations, Amanda," I said, my voice steady despite the acid burning in my throat. "You must be very proud." The meeting continued with routine announcements, but I retained none of the information. My focus narrowed to maintaining my composure until I could escape. When Richard finally dismissed the group, I gathered my materials with deliberate calm and walked unhurriedly toward the door. Outside in the hallway, Marcus caught up with me, his expression thunderous. "That was complete garbage," he whispered fiercely. "Everyone knows that bonus was yours. Richard basically stole $72,000 from you and handed it to his friend's daughter." I touched his arm in warning as Stephanie approached, her expression carefully neutral. Cathryn, do you have a moment to discuss the Westridge account? She asked, as if nothing unusual had transpired. I'll stop by your office this afternoon, I replied evenly, my customer service voice firmly in place. As she walked away, Marcus shook his head in disgust. How can you be so calm? I would be raising hell right now. I simply responded. Getting angry now would only give them the satisfaction of labeling me emotional or difficult. But believe me, this isn't over. Once safely inside my private office, I closed the door and finally allowed the mask to slip. My hands trembled uncontrollably. As I collapsed into my chair, the full magnitude of the betrayal washing over me in waves. 5 years of dedication, countless sacrifices, and exceptional performance, all dismissed in a moment of corporate politics. Memories flashed through my mind with painful clarity. The Christmas Eve I had spent finalizing a proposal while my family celebrated without me. The vacation days I had surrendered to meet impossible deadlines. The relationship that had ended because my partner grew tired of competing with my career for attention. All sacrifices made for a company that had just demonstrated how little they valued my contribution. When my phone rang displaying my mother's number, I nearly declined the call. How could I tell her that the financial relief I had promised was now evaporating? But habits of responsibility ran deep, and I answered. Hi, Mom, I said, fighting to keep my voice normal. Cathryn, honey, today was your big meeting, right? Did you get that bonus you worked so hard for? The innocent question nearly broke my composure. I'm sorry, Mom. There's been a change of plans. The company decided to award the bonus differently this year. Her disappointment was audible but tempered with the unconditional support she had always offered. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. After all your hard work. But don't you worry about me. We'll manage just fine like we always have. Her grace in the face of disappointment only intensified my anger toward Pinnacle's management. After assuring her I was fine and promising to visit soon, I ended the call and turned to my computer. Sleep evaded me that night, as I meticulously reviewed my employment contract, searching for any clause that might protect my right to the earned bonus. The language proved frustratingly vague, referring to performance incentives at management discretion. While the company's internal policy documents clearly outlined the bonus structure based on sales targets, they included enough qualifying language to give leadership technical deniability. I searched online for similar cases of bonus theft, finding numerous stories of employees who had been denied promised compensation through corporate loopholes. Most had simply left their companies, some filing unsuccessful lawsuits that dragged on for years. The following morning, I texted Marcus to meet me for coffee before work. In the quiet corner of a cafe 2 blocks from our office, I laid out my findings. Legally, their position is technically defensible, I explained. The contracts give management final discretion over bonus distribution regardless of performance metrics. Marcus ran a hand through his hair in frustration. So they can just take money you earned and give it to whoever they want. That cannot be legal. It's unethical but not necessarily illegal, I replied. Our employee handbook states that bonuses are recommended based on performance but ultimately awarded at management discretion. That afternoon, I scheduled a meeting with Jennifer from Human Resources, hoping she might provide some insight or recourse. Her office, like her personality, was meticulously organized but revealed little personal information. Cathryn, I understand you wanted to discuss the quarterly bonus decision, she began formally. Yes, I was hoping to understand the rationale behind awarding the executive performance bonus to Amanda, rather than following the established metrics. I replied, keeping my tone professional, rather than accusatory. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. These decisions are made at the executive level, based on multiple factors beyond simple sales numbers. The company values Amanda's potential and wanted to provide appropriate incentives for her development. So my actual performance counts less than someone else's potential, I pressed. Her response was carefully rehearsed. Pinnacle Solutions values your contribution enormously. Your performance review and regular compensation reflect that. The bonus program is simply one of many ways the company recognizes different types of value. The conversation continued in circles, with Jennifer offering corporate platitudes while avoiding any concrete explanation. I left with confirmation of what I already suspected. The company would offer no remedy or acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Over the following days, I maintained my professional demeanor while internally reevaluating my relationship with Pinnacle Solutions. I began noticing other ethically questionable practices I had previously overlooked. The classification of certain employees as independent contractors to avoid providing benefits. The subtle age discrimination in promotion decisions. The pattern of taking credit for female employees' ideas while rewarding male colleagues for implementing them. Most awkward were my encounters with Amanda, who remained blissfully unaware that her windfall had come at my expense. She continued to seek my guidance on projects, bubbling with enthusiasm about the amazing opportunity she had been given. During a training session, she confided, "I never expected anything like this when I started here. My dad always said Richard would look out for me, but this is beyond anything I imagined. I'm going to use part of the bonus to take a vacation to Bali. Have you ever been?" I smiled tightly and redirected the conversation to the training materials. My resentment toward Richard and Stephanie far outweighed any negative feelings toward Amanda herself. She was merely a beneficiary of their manipulation, not its architect. By the end of that difficult week, I had reached a decision. I would not engage in public accusations or emotional outbursts that would only damage my professional reputation. Instead, I would respond strategically, using the same calculated approach that had made me successful in sales. The company had taught me that only results matter, and I would show them exactly what that philosophy meant when applied to their own behavior. My strategic response began with a counterintuitive first step: becoming an even more valuable employee. I arrived earlier, stayed later, and produced work of impeccable quality. To any observer, I appeared to have accepted the bonus decision with professional grace and recommitted myself to the company's success. This facade of loyalty provided the cover I needed to methodically document everything. I created detailed records of all client interactions, saved every email exchange with management, and maintained meticulous notes about verbal instructions and promises. Knowledge I had learned was leverage when wielded correctly. I scheduled lunch meetings with key clients without informing management, framing these as routine relationship maintenance. During these conversations, I subtly reinforced my personal contribution to their success while gathering information about their future needs and concerns. Timothy Baker, CEO of Baker Industries, and our largest client, asked pointedly during one such lunch, "Is everything all right at Pinnacle? We've been hearing rumors about internal restructuring." I maintained my professional demeanor while providing a carefully crafted response. "Every company evolves, Timothy. What matters is that your account continues to receive the attention it deserves, which I personally guarantee." These client relationships had always been my greatest strength. While Pinnacle viewed clients as corporate entities, I understood they were actually individuals who valued personal connection and trust. I had spent years building those relationships, learning about their children's college choices and their vacation preferences, remembering their assistants' birthdays and their coffee orders. Meanwhile, I systematized all my workflows, creating comprehensive documentation of my sales processes and client management strategies. I organized this information as if preparing training materials for the team, receiving praise from Stephanie for my initiative. She remained unaware that I was essentially creating a transition plan that would protect my clients while making my own knowledge transferable on my terms. I paid particular attention to our customer relationship management system, ensuring it contained thorough notes about every client interaction but strategically omitting the personal insights that made my relationships so effective. The system would show when I had contacted each client and what had been discussed, but not why certain approaches worked or the personal connections that facilitated deals. During this period, I also methodically built my network outside Pinnacle. I updated my professional profiles, reconnected with former colleagues, and began attending industry events that I had previously skipped in favor of work. When questioned about these activities, I framed them as efforts to expand Pinnacle's presence in the industry. I researched competitor companies extensively, particularly focusing on their compensation structures and ethical reputations. Through discreet conversations with industry contacts, I identified several organizations that might value both my sales performance and my principled approach to client relationships. One evening, I received a message from Eleanor Wright, the Vice President of Sales at Meridian Technologies, Pinnacle's most formidable competitor. "Cathryn, I've been following your career from afar and have been consistently impressed. If you ever consider exploring opportunities outside your current position, I'd welcome a conversation." I responded, carefully aware that any communication might find its way back to Richard or Stephanie. Thank you for your interest, Eleanor. While I'm currently committed to my projects at Pinnacle, I always value professional connections and would be happy to meet for coffee sometime. Our subsequent coffee meeting revealed that news of my bonus situation had spread through industry channels. Eleanor was refreshingly direct. Let me be blunt, Cathryn. We know what happened with your bonus and we find it appalling. At Meridian, we believe in rewarding performance, not playing favorites. We would be interested in creating a position for someone with your track record, including a significant signing bonus and equity options. The offer she outlined would increase my base salary by 30% and include a signing bonus nearly equivalent to the one I had been denied. More importantly, the compensation structure was contractually guaranteed rather than discretionary. I thanked her for the offer and promised to consider it, carefully maintaining my professional poker face, despite the surge of vindication I felt. Having an exit strategy in place provided both security and clarity as I continued executing my plan at Pinnacle. That same week, Stephanie requested my assistance with projections for the upcoming quarter. The company was pitching to Westridge Corporation, a client that could potentially double our annual revenue. Cathryn, nobody understands the enterprise market like you do, she said, apparently having forgotten how easily they had dismissed that expertise when bonus time arrived. Can you take the lead on preparing the Westridge presentation? Richard wants to review it next Monday. I agreed, readily recognizing both the opportunity and the irony. I spent the weekend creating a masterpiece of a presentation, incorporating insights from years of client experience and market analysis. The resulting document was comprehensive, persuasive, and deliberately structured so that only someone with my specific knowledge could present it effectively. During this period, I also maintained a cordial relationship with Amanda, providing guidance when asked but carefully controlling what information I shared. When she struggled with basic client management concepts, I offered simplified explanations that covered immediate needs without revealing the deeper strategies that made my approach successful. Amanda, your enthusiasm is your greatest asset, I told her sincerely. Clients respond to genuine excitement about their business. Just make sure you're balancing that with careful attention to their specific needs. She beamed at what she perceived as mentorship, unaware that I was simultaneously planning my departure and protecting my professional leverage. As weeks passed, I discovered through careful observation that the company was preparing to present my work on the Westridge account as a collective effort led by Stephanie rather than my individual contribution. In a planning meeting, Richard referred to the upcoming presentation as our executive team's analysis rather than acknowledging my authorship. Most revealing was my discovery of a pattern of bonus manipulation extending beyond my case. Through careful conversations with accounting staff and review of publicly available financial reports, I pieced together evidence that Pinnacle had redirected performance bonuses to favored employees for at least 3 previous years, affecting at least 5 other sales representatives who had subsequently left the company. Armed with this knowledge and the safety net of Meridian's offer, I was ready to execute the final phase of my response. Not a confrontation or a dramatic accusation, but something far more effective: the power of simply walking away at the moment when they needed me most. After careful consideration, I formally accepted Meridian's offer, negotiating a start date 3 weeks in the future. This timeline would allow me to resign from Pinnacle immediately after the crucial Westridge presentation, maximizing both the impact of my departure and my professional integrity. During those final 2 weeks at Pinnacle, I engaged in meticulous preparation that appeared to everyone else as dedication to the company's success. I created comprehensive transition documents for all my accounts, excluding only the personal insights and relationship details that couldn't be captured in writing. I organized my files impeccably, ensuring any successor would find everything they needed except the intangible elements that made my client relationships so successful. I scheduled final presentations with several major clients, ostensibly to review quarterly progress, but actually to subtly reinforce my personal contribution to their success. In each meeting, I emphasized the value I placed on our relationship while avoiding any mention of my imminent departure. During this period, Richard announced ambitious new quarterly targets that depended heavily on securing the Westridge account. In our strategy session, he emphasized the importance of this presentation. This is potentially a $100 million relationship, he reminded the team. We need absolute perfection in this presentation. No mistakes, no hesitation. When he asked who should lead the presentation, Stephanie immediately suggested a team approach with herself as the primary presenter. I saw my opportunity and spoke up. I would be happy to take full responsibility for the presentation, I offered. I've developed a comprehensive understanding of Westridge's needs through my market research. Richard seemed surprised by my enthusiasm but readily agreed. Excellent initiative, Cathryn. The presentation is scheduled for next Thursday. Stephanie, make sure Cathryn has everything she needs. The night before my resignation, I finalized all remaining documentation and prepared 2 letters. The first was my formal resignation, professionally worded and giving the standard 2 weeks' notice. The second was a more detailed letter addressed to Jennifer in HR, documenting the bonus situation and other ethical concerns I had observed. I would submit the first to Richard directly and email the second to Jennifer after leaving the building. Thursday morning arrived with the weight of anticipation. The Westridge presentation was scheduled for 10 o'clock with executives from both companies attending. I dressed in my most professional attire and arrived early to ensure everything was perfectly prepared. The presentation room gradually filled with Pinnacle's executive team and 5 representatives from Westridge, including their CEO and Chief Financial Officer. Richard made introductions emphasizing Pinnacle's commitment to excellence and positioning himself as the driving force behind the company's success. When I stood to begin the presentation, I felt a surprising sense of calm. For 45 minutes, I delivered a flawless analysis of Westridge's needs and Pinnacle's capabilities, answering complex questions with ease and building a compelling case for partnership. The room's energy shifted noticeably as Westridge executives leaned forward, clearly impressed by the depth of understanding I demonstrated. William Foster, Westridge's CEO, interrupted near the end with a direct question. This analysis shows remarkable insight into our operations. Have you worked with similar enterprises before, Miss Miller? I responded honestly. Yes, I've personally developed several comparable partnerships over the past 5 years. I believe the key to successful enterprise relationships is understanding the specific challenges of each organization rather than applying one-size-fits-all solutions. Foster nodded appreciatively. That aligns with our philosophy as well. I'm particularly impressed with your understanding of our international expansion challenges. Who would be our day-to-day contact if we move forward? Before Richard could interject, I answered smoothly. Our account team would work closely with your operations division with dedicated support throughout implementation. I deliberately avoided promising my personal involvement, a nuance that Richard missed, but that would become significant later. As the meeting concluded, Foster approached me directly. Exceptional presentation, Miss Miller. We'd like to move forward with the next steps. Can we schedule a follow-up specifically with you to discuss implementation details? I saw Richard's satisfied smile at what he perceived as a successful close. I'll coordinate with our team and get something on the calendar right away. I assured Foster, again avoiding any personal commitment. After the Westridge team departed, the Pinnacle executives erupted in celebration. Richard clapped me on the shoulder, his earlier betrayal apparently forgotten in the excitement of potential revenue. Outstanding work, Cathryn. This is exactly why we value you so highly. Stephanie, make sure the contract details are prepared by Monday. I want to fast-track this relationship. I thanked him professionally and returned to my office where my resignation letter waited in a sealed envelope. I allowed the team 30 minutes of celebration before requesting a brief meeting with Richard. His secretary, sensing no urgency, scheduled me for 3 o'clock that afternoon. At precisely 3, I entered his office with my resignation letter and a small folder containing documentation of my client transitions. Richard greeted me expansively. Cathryn, I was just telling the board about your triumph this morning. Westridge is exactly the kind of high-profile client we need for the next fiscal year. I placed the sealed envelope on his desk. Richard, I want to thank you for the opportunities I've had at Pinnacle over the past 5 years. This letter contains my formal resignation effective 2 weeks from today. His expression transformed from jubilation to shock. Resignation. What are you talking about after the success you just had? I maintained my professional demeanor. I've accepted a position that better aligns with my career goals and professional values. I've prepared comprehensive transition documents for all my accounts and will ensure a smooth handover during my notice period. Richard's shock quickly morphed to calculation as he processed the implications. This is about the bonus situation, isn't it? Listen, that was a one-time strategic decision. We can discuss compensation adjustments moving forward. My response was calm, but firm. My decision is final. I've appreciated my time at Pinnacle, but believe this is the right move for my career. He shifted tactics, his voice taking on an edge of desperation, poorly disguised as authority. The Westridge account needs your specific expertise. I can't allow this resignation right now. What would it take to change your mind? We could arrange a special retention bonus. The irony of being offered a bonus now was not lost on me. I simply responded, I've given this decision careful consideration. My mind is made up. As realization of his powerlessness in the situation dawned, Richard's expression hardened. Where are you going? Not Meridian. I chose my words carefully. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details of my new position. I assure you I will honor all confidentiality agreements regarding Pinnacle's proprietary information. Our conversation continued for 20 uncomfortable minutes as Richard cycled through bargaining veiled threats about legal consequences and finally grudging acceptance. When I left his office, the news was already spreading through the company grapevine, faces turning to watch me return to my desk. Stephanie appeared at my office door minutes later, her expression a mixture of panic and disbelief. Cathryn, we need to talk about this. The timing is impossible with Westridge just coming on board. I responded with professional courtesy. I understand the timing is challenging. That's why I've prepared detailed documentation for all my accounts, including Westridge. I'm happy to brief whoever will be taking over during my notice period. But you're the one who built the relationship, she protested. They specifically asked for you. I simply replied, the company will need to manage that transition appropriately. I'm sure Amanda will be eager to take on more responsibility given her recent recognition. The mention of Amanda and her bonus caused Stephanie to flinch visibly. She left without further argument, presumably to inform Richard of this additional complication. By 5 o'clock, I had emailed my secondary letter to Jennifer in HR and cleared personal items from my desk. As I walked through the office toward the elevator, several colleagues stopped me with questioning looks or supportive comments. Marcus gave me a knowing nod, having already guessed the nature of my plans. My final act before leaving the building was to send a brief professionally worded email to William Foster at Westridge, thanking him for the productive meeting and informing him that I would be leaving Pinnacle in 2 weeks. I copied Richard and Stephanie, ensuring transparency while making the situation unavoidably clear to our most important potential client. As the elevator doors closed on that chapter of my career, I felt no triumph or vindication, only the quiet satisfaction of having maintained my integrity throughout a difficult situation. The real consequences of my decision would unfold in the days to come, but I had already achieved my most important goal, reclaiming control of my professional value. The ripple effects of my resignation began almost immediately. Within 24 hours, William Foster from Westridge contacted Richard, directly expressing concern about the project leadership change so early in their relationship. From former colleagues who remained at Pinnacle, I learned that Richard had attempted to reassure Foster that the transition would be seamless, offering to personally oversee the implementation. Foster's response was direct and unmistakable. Our decision to move forward was based largely on Miss Miller's specific understanding of our needs. We'll need to reevaluate our timeline in light of this development. This placed Richard in the uncomfortable position of having to explain to the board why a $100 million opportunity was suddenly in jeopardy, all because they had chosen to redirect a $72,000 bonus away from the Portis employee who had earned it. During my notice period, I maintained absolute professionalism, transitioning my accounts methodically and providing all required documentation. I conducted training sessions for team members who would inherit my clients, sharing general strategies while naturally omitting the personal insights that had made my relationships so effective. Amanda struggled visibly with the sudden responsibilities thrust upon her. During a transition meeting, her frustration boiled over. I don't understand why I'm being assigned these major accounts, she confessed. I've only been here 3 months. I'm not ready for this level of responsibility. I offered what genuine guidance I could. Focus on listening to the clients first. They'll tell you what they need if you give them the space to express it. Her response revealed her growing awareness of the situation. "They keep comparing me to you. Richard told me I need to step up since I received that bonus. But I never asked for any of this." For the first time, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her position. She had become a pawn in Richard's game just as much as I had, albeit in a different way. My final day arrived with little ceremony. I completed my exit interview with Jennifer, who seemed uncomfortable throughout our conversation. "Cathryn, I want you to know that your concerns have been noted at the highest levels," she said carefully. "The executive committee is reviewing our bonus allocation procedures." I thanked her professionally, but harbored no illusions about meaningful change occurring after my departure. Without external pressure, systems rarely reform themselves. As I cleared the last items from my desk, several colleagues stopped by to wish me well, many expressing their own disillusionment with the company's practices. Most meaningful was Marcus's visit late in the afternoon. "I just gave Richard my resignation effective next Friday," he informed me quietly. "I've accepted a position with Telford Systems." "I'm happy for you," I replied sincerely. "They're lucky to get you." He shook his head slightly. "What happened to you opened a lot of eyes around here. People are updating their resumes left and right. Richard has no idea about the exodus that's coming." I felt no satisfaction at this news, only recognition that systems built on inequity eventually collapse under their own weight. My departure from the building was anticlimactic, a quiet walk to the elevator with a small box of personal items. No grand speeches or dramatic confrontations, simply the professional conclusion of a business relationship that had run its course. My first day at Meridian Technologies a week later offered a stark contrast to the environment I had left behind. Eleanor introduced me to the team with genuine appreciation for my expertise, outlined clear expectations and compensation structures, and emphasized the company's commitment to ethical business practices. The most unexpected development came 3 days into my new position when William Foster of Westridge Corporation contacted me directly. "Miss Miller, I was disappointed to learn of your departure from Pinnacle. The presentation you delivered showed exceptional understanding of our needs. Would you be open to discussing how Meridian might address those same requirements?" This conversation, conducted with full disclosure to Eleanor and appropriate ethical boundaries, eventually resulted in Westridge signing a $70 million contract with Meridian rather than Pinnacle. While I took no direct pleasure in Pinnacle's loss, I recognized it as the natural consequence of their own decisions. News traveled quickly through industry channels. Within 2 weeks, Pinnacle's stock had dropped 17% as analysts questioned the company's ability to meet projected growth targets without the Westridge contract. Richard began making increasingly desperate attempts to contact me, leaving messages that evolved from thinly veiled threats to outright pleas for assistance with struggling client relationships. I responded to each communication with professional courtesy but firm boundaries. "I'm unable to provide insight on Pinnacle's internal matters now that I'm no longer with the company. I wish you success with your client relationships." Stephanie reached out exactly once, her message surprisingly personal. "Cathryn, I want to apologize for my role in the bonus situation. I should have advocated more strongly for you. I hope you're thriving in your new position." I acknowledged her message with simple professional courtesy, recognizing that in hierarchical systems, even those in apparent positions of power often lack the courage to challenge problematic decisions. Most surprising was the email I received from Jennifer in HR 3 weeks after my departure. "Confidentially, the board has initiated an internal investigation into compensation practices following your detailed letter and the subsequent loss of the Westridge account. Richard is facing significant scrutiny, particularly after 4 additional senior staff resignations this month. I thought you should know that your concerns are being taken seriously, albeit belatedly." I thanked her for the update without expressing either satisfaction or resentment. My focus had shifted entirely to building my new role at Meridian, where I quickly established myself as a valuable team member with unique insights into enterprise client needs. The financial impact on Pinnacle continued to unfold in the following weeks. Beyond the immediate loss of the Westridge opportunity, 3 additional major clients chose not to renew their contracts, citing concerns about personnel changes and service consistency. Industry analysts began questioning the company's leadership stability, and rumors of board intervention circulated widely. Amanda surprisingly reached out to me through professional social media. "I've resigned from Pinnacle," she wrote. "The environment became unbearable after you left. Richard expected me to somehow replace your client relationships overnight. I've accepted an entry-level position at Davidson Group where I can learn properly. Thank you for your kindness during a situation I didn't fully understand at the time." I wished her well, sincerely recognizing that her growth from the experience mirrored my own in many ways. We had both learned valuable lessons about corporate ethics and self-advocacy, albeit from different perspectives. 3 months into my position at Meridian Technologies, the contrast with my experience at Pinnacle became increasingly apparent. My contributions were recognized appropriately, my compensation aligned with my performance, and the collaborative culture fostered growth rather than competition. My signing bonus, nearly equivalent to the one I had been denied at Pinnacle, allowed me to fulfill my promise to help my mother with her medical expenses. The day I transferred the funds to pay off her remaining debt, she called me in tears of relief and gratitude. "Oh, Cathryn, I can't believe this weight is finally gone. I've been carrying it for so long I forgot what it feels like not to worry." That single moment validated my decision more than any professional victory could have. Sometimes, standing up for your worth creates ripples that extend far beyond your career. The professional landscape continued to shift in interesting ways. Industry publications reported a major restructuring at Pinnacle Solutions, with Richard being asked to step down as CEO following a comprehensive review of company practices. The board appointed an interim leader with a mandate to reform the compensation structure and corporate culture. This news brought no satisfaction or vindication, only recognition that systems eventually correct themselves when the cost of continuing harmful practices exceeds the perceived benefit. My focus remained firmly on building my future rather than dwelling on past injustices. At Meridian, I found myself gradually rebuilding my professional identity on a healthier foundation. Rather than defining my worth solely through achievement or recognition, I began valuing the integrity of my work and the quality of my relationships. This shift brought a deeper satisfaction than chasing bonuses or titles ever had. The healing process extended beyond my professional life. I began regular therapy sessions to address the workaholic tendencies that had led me to sacrifice so much for corporate approval. I reconnected with family members I had neglected during my years of 60-hour work weeks. I rediscovered hobbies and interests that had been set aside in pursuit of career advancement. Most significantly, I established boundaries that protected my well-being, even as I continued to excel professionally. I declined weekend work except in genuine emergencies. I took vacation days without apology or constant email checking. I left the office at reasonable hours and pursued meaningful activities outside of work. 6 months after my departure, Stephanie reached out again with a more substantial apology and an update. The company has completely restructured the bonus system following an external audit. Documented metrics now determine compensation with multiple approvals required for any exceptions. "You created lasting change here, even if that wasn't your intention." I appreciated her acknowledgement but harbored no illusions about heroism or vindication. The situation had simply illustrated a fundamental truth: organizations that devalue their most productive members eventually suffer the natural consequences of those decisions. With part of my signing bonus, I established a small scholarship fund at my alma mater for women pursuing business degrees. The experience had shown me the importance of supporting others facing similar challenges in environments that might not recognize their value appropriately. At Meridian, I initiated a mentorship program, specifically designed to help junior employees navigate compensation discussions and advocate for appropriate recognition. This program, fully supported by Eleanor and the executive team, quickly became one of our most appreciated employee development resources. William Foster from Westridge, now one of Meridian's most valued clients, remarked during a quarterly review meeting, "Your transition between companies was the most professional I've witnessed in 30 years of business. No drama, no disparagement of your former employer, just a clear demonstration of where value truly resided. That spoke volumes about your character." His observation crystallized an important lesson. Integrity speaks louder than any dramatic gesture or public accusation. By simply removing my value from an environment that failed to recognize it appropriately, I had made a more powerful statement than any complaint or confrontation could have achieved. The most profound healing came through releasing the anger and resentment I had initially harbored. These emotions, while natural and justified, ultimately consumed more of my energy than they were worth. By redirecting that energy toward building something better, I transformed a painful experience into a catalyst for growth. Looking back on the journey from betrayal to renewal, I recognize now that losing that bonus opened doors I might never have sought otherwise. Sometimes what feels like our greatest disappointment becomes the unexpected turning point towards something far more valuable than money, authentic recognition, healthier relationships, and work that aligns with our deepest values. For anyone facing similar situations, remember this: your worth is not determined by others' recognition. When you find yourself undervalued, you always have the power to take your talents elsewhere. The most effective response to disrespect is not outrage, but simply removing yourself from environments that fail to recognize your true value. Have you ever experienced a professional betrayal that ultimately led to something better? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating workplace challenges with dignity and strategy. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the quietest actions create the loudest consequences.